Hello, everyone. Well, we love the mid-age women. So today's session is fitness over 40. What should we do as we approach 40 and beyond? That's what we're going to talk with Sonya. Sonya is a personal trainer as well as a menopause coach joining it live from Australia. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's just start with the 40 something, and then we move on to that kind of, talks about perimenopause, and then menopause is 50, early 50 something, and then post. So what type of exercises should women start doing if they're not doing early on?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons why I like to talk about fitness over 40 is because it's when we enter that perimenopausal stage that our exercise needs can change and also our physiology starts changing. So, perimenopause for some women can start as early as 35. So it is something that the earlier you start thinking about in your 30s, but if you start implementing the changes after 40, then you are definitely setting yourself up for a healthier, happier, stronger future. So the changes that I like to talk about the most for women are, if you're not already strength training, looking at introducing strength training into your weekly routine. And the reason that we recommend strength training, and it becomes so important in those years, is that as our estrogen starts to decline, our bone density starts to become impacted as well. And strength training is the easiest and most beneficial way that you can work with your body to maintain your bone density. So you kind of slow down that decline from the estrogen, and you can also build muscle strength, and which keeps your posture good. It keeps your body fit and strong and capable. The other area that we want to talk about a lot is balance. So as we start to age, we often see that women start to become more susceptible to falls. We've all had those older relatives that have had falls in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, end up needing hip replacements and all of those sorts of things. The work that we can do in our 40s and our 50s, particularly around strength training and maintaining our bone density, getting a really good, strong skeletal and musculoskeletal system, then the less likely we are to have those falls and then to suffer the injuries that happen as a result of those falls. So that's one of the biggest reasons why strength training becomes really super important for women to bring into their exercise and movement regime after they're 40. The other area we want to talk about, obviously, is cardio. We want to be getting, heart health becomes super important for women. More women die from heart disease than pretty much anything else, particularly here in Australia. So heart health becomes really important. So we want to be we want a healthy heart, we want healthy bones. And the other area that I like to talk about is also starting to reduce the amount of long steady state cardio that you might be doing, shortening that up a little bit, and also reducing your high intensity training that you might be doing. So if you're somebody that has bounced through your 20s and 30s doing a lot of high intensity interval training, it's actually recommended that you pull that back a little bit once you're into your 40s and your 50s. And the reason for that is that in our perimenopausal years, our cortisol naturally becomes elevated in our bodies. So your cortisol is your stress hormone. Exercise naturally puts stress on the body. So you're in an elevated stress level to start with because of your fluctuating hormones. You then exercise, you're adding a little bit more stress on top of that. But if you're doing high intensity interval training, every time that you go and work out, you're adding a too big a load onto your cortisol, and that's actually going to set your body back from a recovery perspective. It's going to impact your sleep, and it's not good for your blood pressure, which brings us back to heart health. So you can see how everything's really interconnected. So reducing high intensity interval training, not stopping it altogether, it's definitely got a place, but perhaps doing shorter bursts and not as often. And the other area that I like to talk about when we're talking about our intentional exercise is starting to work some plyometrics into your workouts if they're not something that you've done before. So plyometrics is when you are doing a bounding type exercise. So it's where you may have, well, you will have usually both feet off the ground at one point in time. So examples might be box jumps or burpees, or a rebounder trampoline is a great way for some people to bring plyometric work into their workouts, particularly if you work at home. Hopping from foot to foot, little things like that. And the reason for this is, and there's some really exciting research coming out, that when we do these bounding exercises, these plyometric exercises, we're actually creating small changes in the genes in our body, and those that is triggering genes to be more protective of our bones and our heart, and again, all those areas, the musculoskeletal system, that are all interconnected. So from an intentional workout perspective, I recommend that all women over 40 are definitely doing strength training, minimum of 3 sessions a week ideally, getting some cardio in there, little bit of high intensity training and some plyometrics. And if you can, and they're easy things to just bring into your existing workouts. And if you're doing a workout 3 to 4 times a week across a 7-day period, allowing some days in there for recovery as well. Recovery becomes really important as we start getting those fluctuations in our hormones. So that's an intentional exercise perspective. The one thing that I think in many respects is actually way more important, but isn't talked about enough, is our NEAT. So NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And this is the exercise that we do on a daily basis that's not intentional. So this is taking the dog out for a walk. It's walking up and down the stairs at home. It's standing up at your desk as opposed to sitting in a chair. It's walking to the shops to get your daily coffee or paper as opposed to jumping in the car and driving up there. So this, you might work out for 45 minutes to an hour in a day, but the NEAT exercise and movement, the incidental movement that you get throughout a day can be 7 to 8 hours of movement. And this area of movement is super, super important and really underappreciated, I think. So when I work with women, I'm always talking about the things we've just talked about in your workouts and your incidental, your intentional exercise, but also making sure that you're moving as much as possible across the rest of the day as well.
I think that's great. What you outlined, reducing the HI, high intensity interval, and then taking the strength training up, plyometric. I never thought about it, but that's important. What about on your thoughts on things like Tai Chi? The restorative,
the energy in
Eastern.
Absolutely.
Tai Chi, yoga. What do you think about those?
I think they're all amazing and super important. And, we talked about those elevated cortisol levels and the stress. And let's always remember that women are living incredibly busy and highly pressurized lives. We're talking about right now what we call the sandwich generation. So often they're women that are still raising a family, holding down a job, paid work as well. And they're also looking after aging parents. So women have these incredible pressures coming at them from all areas of their lives. So the more ways that you can find to do what I call energy in versus energy out. So that is your Tai Chi and your yoga, and Pilates is another great one. They're beautiful ways to really bring your nervous system down, start working on those cortisol levels a little bit, quieting the mind, finding ways to just be a little bit quieter, a little bit more focused on you as opposed to everything that's going on externally. Yoga and Pilates can also be great for, some resistance training, mostly body weight. If you're doing reformer Pilates, then you are getting a little bit more resistance with the bed that is used in those. However, what you don't achieve with those exercises is the ability to progressively overload. So that's where getting into a gym and doing some strength training with your kettlebells and your dumbbells and your bars and sorts of things still become very important. So I like to see the Tai Chi, the yoga, the Pilates interwoven across a week into your actual strength and cardio workouts as well.
All right. Well, anything else you'd like to add? This is a quick 10-minute session that we bring. And today's session was more, how you change your exercise routine or workout as you approach perimenopausal years. Any other type of exercise that women should think of?
Look, I think another area that's really underestimated is just getting out in nature for walks. Just nice, slow, gentle. They don't have to be power walks. You don't have to be climbing mountains, but just getting out into the nature. And that, is going to vary for women depending on where you live. If you're close to a beach, then get out and go for beautiful beach coastal walks. If you're somewhere that's more bush or forest, get out into your native natural environment and just really enjoy being in that environment. Take a time to find a nice rock to sit on and, zoning into what's going on around you with your five senses, kind of sit there and think, what can I smell? What can I see? What can I hear? What can I touch? Really is incredibly powerful. And there's a lot of research coming out to talk about how beneficial that is for mental health, which is just as important as all the other areas that we've talked about today.
Absolutely. And I just want to end this saying that this is the time for women for self-love, self-reflection, self-discovery, and taking care of ourselves is very, very important. We don't do that as women across the world for that.
And the other thing that I would add into that is to really think about everything that you start doing now being for the benefit of future you. So starting to think about the you that you might be in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's the work and the changes that we start making now that are going to pay off in those coming years.
All right. Well, thank you so much to all the viewers. Keep supporting us. We're coming up with programs. We focus on mid-age women's lives and helping them improve, as I talked about their mental health, their physical health, as well as their spiritual health. So today's session was about the physical. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, Sonya, for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.